Hey everyone, Dwayne Edwards here, founder of VMHA here. And today we have a special treat. In the past, I've done videos where I've, had interviews with success stories of veterans who've used our services. Today, I actually have the unique pleasure to interview our co-founder, Dr. Akila Edwards. And I'll be, honest, I'm a bit biased. She is also my wife, right? So I'll make that very clear for folks so they know that relationship here as well. And beyond that, she's also really uniquely qualified to do the work that she's doing. And I'll share a little bit about Dr. Edwards here, who I call Akila, and I'll give you the floor here, Dr. Edwards, to share. But Dr. Edwards has she got her undergraduate degree from Cornell University, her graduate degree, her PhD from Columbia University, and over her coursework, she's really become an expert at conducting assessments. Prior to founding VMHA, she supervised over 70 doctoral level clinicians nationwide. And so it is my personal pleasure and honor, as well as VMHA's honor, to have her as the head of psychology for our company. And really, her philosophy and her approach has made its way throughout every fabric of our company, and not to mention even the technology that our psychologists use. So Dr. Edwards, really, really thrilled to have you on today's session and to be able to share your thoughts with the veteran community.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, why don't we just jump right in then to kind of warm things up? I'll give you some warm up stuff, and then we'll get into more of the meat and potatoes in a little bit. All right. So, when you're not, either discussing clients with your psychologist or conducting IMOs yourself, what are you doing? What does your life look like? What do you do for fun?
Well, we have 3 young boys, so they take up a good amount of my time in my schedule. But when I do have some free time, uh, I enjoy working out. I enjoy taking walks in nature. I find that very grounding and relaxing. And I consider myself a foodie. I really enjoy trying out new restaurants, trying new foods, and I like to bake also at home.
Okay. I co-sign the foodie. She does like her food, and I'm there with her. So I enjoy it as well. And yes, you are a very good baker.
Oh,
You are a
thank
very good baker. And I believe there's been a request for apple crisp over the holidays,
Yes,
along with some ice cream, which I've heard
homemade
is in
vanilla ice cream, yes.
homemade vanilla
Mhm.
ice cream. Very strong, very strong. All right. So you have all these talents, right, Dr. Edwards, all these things you could be doing with your time, right? You could be a professional baker, right? You probably could be a professional chef if you wanted to. You're clearly a great psychologist. Why did you decide to do, this work relative to all the other things that you could be doing in the world?
Yeah, well, I'm a veteran spouse, of course. So that has certainly personally connected me with this work. I also have a lot of family members who have been in the military. So I do feel a personal connection with the veteran community, and I care deeply about this community. This is one way that I have been able to give back, and so it's been very rewarding for me.
And I've seen that firsthand. And quick shout out to Grandpa Wash, who served in Vietnam as a Vietnam veteran. And
Yes,
he just is he I believe he's 90 now. Is that right?
soon, in a few
Oh,
days.
in a few days he'll be 90. In a few days he'll be 90. But yes, you have, and of course you got your Marine, husband here, and a bunch of folks here who you're personally, very personally connected with. So
Yes,
you see it and you feel it.
yes, I
As
do.
you think about, yeah, As we think about all the veterans who are watching this video right now, right? And many of them, we've heard they've complained about their CMP exam. We've heard
Mhm.
a bunch of horror stories about the 10 to 20-minute CMP exam. And a lot of them, are curious about, VMHA's assessment. What makes
Mhm.
our, assessment and our approach different from the typical, VA CMP exam?
So I have unfortunately heard that story many times. Um, the veteran who tells me that they had a very brief exam, they were rushed, they didn't even get a chance to tell their story,
Yep.
or the provider was falling asleep looking at their phone. I've heard all sorts of stories. Um, and it's unfortunate because the veteran in that case doesn't have an opportunity to share, to tell their story. In our assessment, it is very different. We give space and time for the veteran to share their experiences, the impact that it's had on them. We don't schedule our sessions back to back. We
Yep.
leave some buffer time so that the veteran can not feel rushed. It's really important that they have a great experience when they come to us, and that involves, feeling heard, feeling like they're being listened to, and not having a provider who's watching the clock and worried about getting to their next appointment. So I think we have a pretty good process and setup where we have some buffer time built in to facilitate that.
100%. I think, well, I've seen firsthand your level of thinking as you thought about the clinical experience for our clients. But what I also love about what you've done is that you've actually moved a bit upstream, and you said, okay, if we're going to deliver this type of experience for our clients, what does that mean about the experience we have to deliver for our psychologists, right? And so,
Mhm.
yes, you thought about, not going back to back, but also, when we were building out the technology for VMHA and our clinical experience, you also thought about, okay, how does this layout need to be set up so that our psychologists have the best experience they can have, so they can focus solely on the veteran and not be, rummaging through paperwork trying to find, diagnoses or things like that, to make them 100% laser focused on that veteran for those 60 minutes.
Yes, our software is built with the clinician in mind, so that they can work efficiently, but as you said, so that they can focus on what the veteran is saying. The questions that they need to ask are right there in front of them and built into the software. And yes, so they can focus on that experience and really being present with the veteran.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm going to transition us a little bit here.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about the veteran experience, right? And I think, I've personally spoken with so many veterans who assume that, oh, I wasn't in combat, so I can't,
Mhm.
I can't file a claim, or I didn't experience that kind of trauma, and
Mhm.
so I'm not, I don't deserve to get, VA benefits. Number one, how do you, what do you say to that veteran, to help them open up about their experiences, and
Mhm.
and to help them feel, acknowledged about their experience? How do you approach that, and how do you help our psychologists approach that?
Well, it is a common misconception that trauma is only defined for veterans by combat or near-death experiences. And it's really not just that. It's also sexual trauma, it's training accidents, it's verbal abuse or toxic leadership. There
Mhm.
are a variety of experiences that constitute trauma or even just impactful experiences. So we strive to really validate that through our assessments. We approach each assessment without any judgment. We want to hear every story. We want to hear every veteran and their perspective and where they're coming from. and we leave space for them to share. We let them know that we want to hear, and we're not placing any judgment on how severe this experience is, or whether it qualifies for this or qualifies for that. We want to hear everything and hear the impact of that experience on the veteran's mental health.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things that I've seen that we've done as a company is that we've created conditions so that we're able to get as much data as possible from the veterans, right? So when they first sign up with us, we send them a extremely thorough pre-assessment form that allows
Mhm.
them to take some time and sit back, and if they have a partner or spouse, really, or someone else is able to help them see how they've been impacted, fill that out, right? And a lot of times I've seen
Mhm.
veterans take 30 to 45 minutes capturing all that information that they send back to our team. And on top of that, we send them, forms to fill out as well.
Mhm.
So in terms of, I think we've done a remarkable job. A lot of that based on kind of your guidance and leadership on the clinical side to really create the conditions so that our veterans are able to share as much as possible, so that we can ethically, right, support them as their advocates. So I think you've done a remarkable job. Is there anything you want to add there that I missed? And feel free to add on to that.
No, I would just say that, the documentation itself helps the veteran's experience to be validated. So we're including that experience in the report that we complete, and we're showing that, this experience, it has had this impact, and that in and of itself kind of um, validates that veteran's experience, and that it did, it contributed to how they're functioning right now.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'll tell you, as a non-clinician, right? Before I came into this, before you started getting your PhD, I didn't know the difference between psychiatrist, psychologist,
Mhm.
therapist, and a lot of our veterans, they're not as informed as I've had the luxury of kind of being in this world with you, and so a lot of them sometimes think that, okay, they're therapists, and this is what they do, and can they
Mhm.
help me? How do you help veterans understand the difference between a therapy session and
Mhm.
a psychological assessment, like what we do at VMHA?
Yeah, so I would think of therapy as treatment. It's not something that only happens once. It's something that's you're going to participate in over time. You're
Yep.
setting goals for yourself. You're setting goals that might pertain to changing a behavior, changing thoughts. You might be processing experiences that happen. And so therapy is something that happens over time on a
Hmm.
regular basis. You're meeting with that provider, but not only one time. You're meeting with them maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, and you're working towards these goals. With an evaluation for a VA claim, you're going to see that provider one time, and the purpose is to gather data. The provider is gathering data, information about your symptoms, how you're functioning right now, how you're socializing with other people, how you're functioning in your work, and using that information to determine what diagnosis you might have, and then also where you lie on the VA's scale of functioning so that we can recommend a rating level. But we're not processing traumatic experiences, and we're not meeting continuously over time. We're not treating your mental health condition. We're gathering information.
That's right. That's right. And I think that to bring us back to the beginning where we talked about the CMP exam,
Mhm.
why mental health, there's so much complexity with regards to mental health and being able to ascertain diagnoses, evidence, and what a veteran needs. It's a bit alarming to think that some of that could be done within less than 15 minutes, right? I think it's,
Mhm.
think about the nuances of what each veteran's story means for them, but more importantly, what it means for how they've been impacted and how that now impacts them, the people around them, and their future. Being able to really capture all that data in our assessment
Mhm.
really is a game changer for the veteran.
Oh yeah, and it takes time. We ask a lot of questions, and that's because we want to make sure we give the veteran all of the evidence and the information they need to present to the VA. And yeah, I would say 15 minutes is just not enough time to paint a complete picture of what is going on with that veteran and how things have changed for them um, since they served.
100%. 100%. All right, so we're gonna fast forward a little bit. Let's say, I agree, 15 minutes is not enough time. I'm gonna get an assessment from VMHA.
Mhm,
I get my VMHA hat on, so clearly, I'm open to that. And I'm sitting down. It's the first 10 minutes of the assessment, and I'm sitting
mhm,
down with, you name any one of our psychologists on our team. What
mhm.
should I expect within the first 10 minutes of the assessment with one of our psychologists?
Yeah, in the first 10 minutes, so there's some information that we have to verify, like your name and where you are. And after we get through all of those items, we're building rapport. We're helping the veteran to feel comfortable. So we usually open up by inviting the veteran to share with us what their story is, what their situation is, why they came to us, before we start going through our list of questions, just so that they know that the floor is theirs and so that they can freely tell us their story.
Excellent. Excellent. And that's so important, right? Because so many veterans have had, well, let's be honest. I'll be honest. Like we can be a resistant population, right? That we can, and for good reason, right? That we've been trained to think that we can run through walls, and we can break down buildings by ourselves. And
Mhm,
depending on the situation, like we've had to do things like that, right? And if we're operating overseas or doing specific missions wherever we're tasked to do that, that mentality is remarkably beneficial, right? But when we're
mhm,
stateside, or we've taken off the armor, we've taken off the uniform, and we're back with our families, and we now need to be a functional member of society, that mentality can sometimes hurt us, right? From being able to take the wall down and really be able to connect. So I think that piece about helping that veteran be comfortable and recognizing their own nerves, I think is super, super important.
mhm.
And there's another piece of that, and I'm curious what you think, is that unfortunately many veterans have had poor experiences in the past with mental health providers, right? And so
Right.
how does our approach help to change that thinking for our community?
Well, that is our hope that every veteran that we see leaves with an open mind about seeking out mental health treatment in the future if they don't already have that mindset or if they're not already receiving treatment. By actually experiencing it with us, having a provider who cares, actually listen to them, and to actually be validated by a provider. Um, the hope is that the experience that they have with us makes them hopeful about receiving treatment, and just more open to that idea. I mean, we've had a lot of veterans tell us in these assessments, this is the first time I've shared this story. This is the first time I've told anyone this. And we don't take that lightly at all. We're honored, and it means a lot to us that our veterans feel comfortable opening up, and that they trust us with the information that they're sharing. So,
No, that's what a beautiful point, right? In terms of the our testimonials, our reviews, and I know we're both equally so grateful and appreciative of our veterans for sharing those testimonials and sharing those reviews, and the fact that we're in a position to be able to create an experience like that for our veteran community,
Mhm.
especially because of the fact that a lot of veterans, this is their first time sharing, right? This is their first time opening up. And for many of the things they're sharing, sometimes these things are their worst days, the worst days they've ever had, right?
Mhm.
And as you think about that and the delicacy that's needed to navigate through that, how do you and your team of psychologists navigate through that without re-traumatizing that veteran while still also ensuring that we're able to really get through the crux of that so they can get the evidence they need to get their accurate and appropriate benefits?
So we approach this by letting the veteran lead in this area. So we let them know that you can share in as little or as much detail as you feel comfortable. If
Mhm.
you just want to share the broad brushstrokes of what happened, that's fine. If you want to tell the full story and go into detail, we are here to listen. Um, it's important to have it documented for their claim, but if they don't want to, say everything and really relive that during the assessment, then that is perfectly fine. Again, it's not therapy, so it's not really the place to process that experience. So they
Mm.
really have to determine what they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. As I think about from a procedural standpoint, the things we've done to be able to capture the information, right? Because depending on the veteran, maybe they don't want to go too deeply into. Maybe we stay at a topical level. But I like the fact that we asked them to submit their treatment notes, right? We asked them to submit personal statements, buddy statements, um, uh, D214, anything contextually related to their mental health claim, so that the psychologist can then be able to review that in advance to then
Mhm,
have the context to navigate the assessment, right? And so I think that's one of the great things about how you've clinically designed the information gathering aspect of this to be able to
mhm.
deliver really high quality assessments for our veteran community, while still being able to recognize that, hey, we're dealing with some really sensitive topics, and for many of us, it's our worst day.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna kind of move us along a little bit now. Uh, I mean, at this point, I mean, you've seen uh, I don't know, hundreds of veterans. Personally, VMHA has seen hundreds of veterans, and each of our psychologists has their own number. And uh, you've had a strong assessment, right? Let's say this is we've had the spectrum of, we've had the veteran that just left service, a year ago. We've had the Vietnam veterans, but regardless of where that veteran stands, that based on your assessment, this is going to be life changing for this veteran, and not just in terms of compensation, but more so in terms of financial stability, in terms of mental health support, in terms of validation, right, about their experience. When you finished documenting the report, or even because I know you spot check and review our psychologist report, and for folks in training, I believe you actually review every single one of their reports before they go out.
Right.
you know how do you how do you feel after either your one that you wrote, or you're reviewing one from the psychologist, and that this document is now going to change that veteran's life?
Oh, it's extremely rewarding. I've done, different things during my career as a psychologist, and I don't always know the impact or hear about the impact. And so with this work, it's been really great to know that there is tangible impact being made, and also to, hear from veterans that they've shifted their mindset about
Mm,
treatment, or that they feel heard for the first time. It's extremely rewarding to know that we are having a positive impact.
that's right. That's right. And I've seen that. I've also seen you post success stories or feedback that veterans have left in our internal Slack channel, so that everyone in the company is able to see their impact and get that feeling. Because not all of us are doing the actual assessments. We have community outreach folks, we have operational folks, we got marketing folks, and so I really appreciate your attempt to really be able to share that impact with the team as a whole. So I think that's remarkable. And as I think about that, I also there's I wonder how much time. I think we have a little bit of time to go into this. I think about we talk about treatment and we talk about the assessment, right? And I know that there are things that we have done as a company to be able to bridge that gap, right? And
Mhm.
so one of the things we've done is we've thought about the experience the veteran receives, but one of the things that I'm reflecting back, and I know that you've asked us to do, is that we share resources with
Mhm.
every veteran that comes through our practice. Really, and I think it's 24 hours after every assessment. A veteran's getting an email with some specific resources for them, and so as we think about bridging that gap, there are things like that we've done along with things on our website to be able to really help to bridge that gap as much as we can, so that yes, we do assessments, and our team of psychologists, led by Dr. Edwards, you are remarkable at doing assessments, and we want to help our community bridge that gap because as our mission is to increase the quality of life and mental health of our veteran community. Um,
Yes, that's something that is really important to us. Uh, During the assessment, if we hear that a veteran maybe that therapy could be useful to a veteran, then we might mention that during the assessment, and we might provide a resource verbally. We want to make sure that our veterans, after having the experience with us that hopefully was positive, they want to seek out some sort of treatment or resource, and that they have something written that they can refer to be able to seek that out. We don't want there to be any barriers to them moving forward on their journey.
that's right. That's right. Okay, so we're coming to the point where we have to unfortunately close this really really rich conversation, and so I know that I've personally, and I know for a fact that you have as well. You've spoken to many veterans who they're on the fence, right? They're thinking, I don't know, I didn't get, is my trauma severe enough? I didn't go to Afghanistan. One of the things that I had to kind of work through being a Marine, in the infantry, is that, I went to Iraq, and there's a time that Afghanistan was, a bit hotter than Iraq. And so there's all these reasons that veterans feel like, their experience is not enough, right? Like what they've done is not enough. I didn't go to Afghanistan. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't deploy. Um, what do you say to that veteran who's on the fence about moving forward and getting a mental health claim if we know for a fact that they have been impacted? What do you want to say to them?
I would say to, be honest with yourself and think about how you might be different. Were you very social before you entered the military and now you isolate yourself? Do you have trouble concentrating now and you used to be a very focused and driven student or employee? And just think about how that relates to your mental health. You don't necessarily even need a traumatic event to be able
Mm,
to be service connected for a mental health condition. Um, many veterans are service connected without having a traumatic event documented. So the important thing is whether you have been impacted. So asking yourself those questions and thinking about whether your mental health is different, those are the things that are important rather than trying to assess how severe an event was, or whether you have an event. Um, you probably should be service connected if your mental health has changed. So you really have to just be honest with yourself and ask yourself how things are different for you.
Excellent, wise words, Dr. Edwards. Uh, on behalf of VMHA, just want to thank you for everything that you have done for not just our psychologists or our organization, really our entire the veteran community that we've been privileged enough to be able to support and serve. And so, your hands are all over all parts of that. And so, deeply appreciative of what you have done, what you continue to do, and certainly your time now sharing your words, your wisdom with our veteran community. So thank you, Dr. Edwards. Appreciate you deeply. And I'm looking forward to that apple crisp and vanilla vanilla ice cream over the holidays. Thank you all for listening, watching, and engaging with our content. And like always, if you are a veteran and your mental health has been impacted, or if you're unsure, feel free to reach out to us at vmha4vets.com. That's our website. You can email us at info@vmha4vets.com. And our team is standing by to learn more about your specific situation and how we can support you.